I worked for a long time for an Indian Legal Services program, and part of my job was to read the mail, and we got a lot of mail just from people throughout the state. We also got a lot of mail from Indian prisoners. And I just noticed that a lot of the mail from the prisoners especially mentioned that they were foster youth, or they were adopted, or abandoned by their families at, a young age. So that's one thing. The other thing is that we had a phone, and I think we had 5 offices statewide, so it had huge number of counties that we served and had to answer requests for service from. And there was so many calls from adults seeking their native, that they knew they were native, but they didn't know where they were from, and just seeking information about their history and past. And it wasn't based on thinking they were going to get something. I think it was kind of gaming. It was just this searching for, their heritage, their roots, their family. So when I started to work at ICRC, I had that as a background. I knew that there was this great, community out there of people that had been just disinherited, by their, because they either were adopted out before, this act was enacted, or maybe since. But just as adults, that seeking and longing to know, your family and where you're from, and especially if you were raised in a white family or a different community and you were different, so it really all tied together for me, knowing that piece, and then knowing on the front end what you kind of needed to do, to preserve this for that child. Because you can't fix everything, some of this, is a decision, that families have to make for themselves in terms of what they're willing to do in order to recover. But I think, the Indian Child Welfare Act talks about the best interests of the child, and I know that at the end of the day, the best interest of that child is to know that they have a community, that they have tribe, that they have family that cares about them, that doesn't want to lose them. So it is hard work, and some of this emotion is coming out, and it's frustrating that there's not much more support for it, and but you can't, get caught up in that frustration. You really just need to see what do you need to do, to secure a place for it, in the whole child welfare system. What can you do to make it a routine part of every social worker's job to find out whether or not they're dealing with an Indian child, and whether that child, has, special rights. When we become aware of a child where, we make sure that we've identified their family, or identified tribal, other tribal members, or even place them in one of our, Indian foster homes, so we can work, towards reunification. It's a great deal of satisfaction, and then when we reunify, when a child is put back in their family, it's just really a joyous occasion. That family has had to work through a lot of obstacles, to get to that place. They've had to work through their own personal issues. They also had to work through, this great bureaucracy that, kind of churns and comes and becomes part of your life, until they release you. And so for the families that stick with it, I think, I think there's a strength there, and there's a real, hope that they'll keep their family together.